Today we're going to show you how to change the door gasket on your refrigerator, and it's a really easy job. All we're going to need is a number 2 Phillips screwdriver and a 5/16 nut driver. Let me show you how we do it. Now before we begin this repair, the first thing we'll need to do is to open the door, and we'll turn the refrigerator off. So simply reach in and turn the control to the off position. Then remove any items that are on the door, including the bins. And then we're next going to remove the hinge cover, remove the screws that hold the top hinge in place, and then we'll take the door off and set it on a suitable work surface where we can change the gasket. So just pull forward on that hinge cover and lift up on it and remove it. Remove the 2 5/16 bolts that hold that hinge to the cabinet. Now as you remove the last bolt, make sure that you can secure that door to the cabinet so that it doesn't fall off. And the door is fairly heavy, so you may need some assistance in removing it and setting it on a work surface. We grasp both sides, lift up on it, and remove it. Now with the door on a suitable work surface, we can now exchange that gasket, and it's actually mounted to the door and held in place by the inner door panel. And it's kind of sandwiched between that inner door panel and the outer door frame. So to remove it, we will need to loosen all of the screws around the perimeter of that door. And they don't need to be removed. You can just loosen them about 1/4 inch. And that will allow us to pull the gasket out from beneath the inner door panel. And you'll note that there is a channel around that inner door panel, and the gasket actually has a bulbous edge on it that will fit up into that channel to hold it properly in place. So just go ahead and loosen all of those screws all the way around the perimeter of the door. So once you have those screws loosened, you can just pull that gasket out from beneath the inner door liner, and you'll see the little rib around the edge of that gasket and where it fits into this channel on the inner door panel. So just pull it all the way around and remove it. Now once we have all of the screws loosened, we can now pull that gasket out from beneath the inner door liner. And that's when you'll note that little rib around the edge of the gasket and the channel on the edge of the door panel. So just peel that out all the way around. And use some caution so that we don't damage that inner door panel. And then we can discard the old gasket, and we're just going to lay that new gasket around the door. And because of the type of packaging that that gasket arrives in, you will need to either heat it with your clothes dryer, a hair dryer, or soak it in the bathtub in hot water, and that'll make it pliable and allow you to work out any of the kinks that may have occurred during shipping. So once we've got that softened up in good shape, we can then begin to install it onto the door. And I recommend starting in one of the corners and just inspect that edge of the outer door panel first to make sure that there's no crud or buildup there that needs to be removed first. Just start by hooking that corner into position and work that little rib in under the edge of the inner door panel. And just fit that rib in under that inner door panel and make sure it's nice and flush on the outside. And then while holding it in place, just tighten that screw up a little bit. And then work your way along the door, fitting it in as you go. And then just periodically snug up one of those screws to hold it in place. And continue to do that all the way around the door, taking care in the corners to make sure that we have them nice and square and even. And once we've got the gasket fitted in all the way around the door, then we can go ahead and tighten up the screws. So just carefully lift that door up, line it up with the bottom hinge. And set it into position. Set the top hinge into the socket and install the 2 bolts. And we won't tighten these bolts yet. We'll just put them in all the way, and then we'll line the door up before we tighten them up. So just to look down both sides of the door, make sure that it's square with the cabinet. And once we have it in the right position, then tighten the bolts and reinstall the hinge cover. We'll put the back end on first and hook that on, and then pull the front down and snap it in place. We'll next reinstall the door bins. And remember to turn the control back to the on position. And then just close the door and inspect around the edge. Make sure that gasket is fitting nice and tight against the cabinet. And if you have any spots where it's bulging out, just take some tape and tape the door shut, or apply a little more heat to that gasket until it sets properly, and your repair is complete.